Every man thinks he's the exception and that his story will be different, that somehow his patience, his loyalty, and his love will change the ending. He thinks if he just holds on long enough, if he just explains himself one more time, if he just gives her the benefit of the doubt, this time she'll see his worth. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood that a man who fails to see clearly is a man already conquered not by an enemy, not by war, but by the illusion of love wrapped in a smile that was never meant to protect him. Most men don't fall because they're weak. They fall because they're blind, trained to believe that love means self-sacrifice, conditioned to chase connection at the cost of clarity, taught by a culture that rewards submission with false intimacy. But there is no applause for the man who chooses wrong, no sympathy, no mercy, just a slow internal collapse, one decision at a time, one ignored red flag after another until he wakes up one morning and realizes he's not himself anymore. He's not the man he was. He's not even close. And she's not the woman he once believed in. She never was. And still he stays. Not out of strength, but out of fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of admitting he gambled his future on someone who never had the capacity to grow beside him. And in that fear, he silences his instincts. He betrays his own standards. He lowers his guard, hands her the crown, and calls it love. But it's not love. It's treason against his own purpose, against the mission he was born to pursue, against the fire that once made him unstoppable. Machiavelli didn't write for men like this. He didn't write for romantics. He wrote for rulers, for men who understood that power is not something you beg for. It's something you protect. He understood that appearances deceive and that the greatest threats to a kingdom don't wear armor, they wear affection. And the man who cannot see beyond the makeup, beyond the words, beyond the emotional theater, is a man building his kingdom on sand. The truth is this: every woman you let into your life is either a fortress or a Trojan horse. She either strengthens your code, sharpens your vision, fortifies your discipline, or she chips away at it, slowly, quietly, sweetly. And by the time you notice the collapse, it's already too late. But how do most men choose? By instinct? No. By wisdom? Rarely. They choose by what the world has trained them to believe matters most: beauty, charm, novelty. They choose with their eyes. And as Machiavelli said, men are more easily deceived by what they see than what they touch. So they fall for the image, not the essence. They fall for potential, not pattern, and they pay for it with their peace. There are only two types of women, not 50, not 5, 2, beneficial or destructive. That's it. She either aligns with your purpose or she pulls you away from it. She either multiplies your life or slowly drains it. There is no neutral, and the most dangerous woman is not the one who argues. It's the one who distracts you from your path while convincing you she's helping you walk it. She doesn't need to shout. She just needs to make you doubt yourself. She doesn't need to control you. She just needs to make you believe that love means compromise even when the compromise is your soul. The modern man has been trained to call this connection, to believe that giving more, explaining more, and sacrificing more will eventually earn him the loyalty he deserves. But loyalty is never given to the man who folds. It's given to the man who leads. And a man who cannot walk away is not a man who is strong. He is a man who has been domesticated by the very thing that was supposed to strengthen him. You see, beauty blinds the undisciplined man. He doesn't study her patterns. He doesn't look at how she handles pressure, boredom, conflict, or correction. He looks at the curve of her body and the softness of her voice. He sees how she makes him feel, not how she lives. And in doing so, he hands her something sacred: his judgment. And once a man gives away his judgment, once he defers his discernment for dopamine, he is no longer sovereign. He's a servant to a smile, a servant to chaos disguised as intimacy, a servant to the narrative that love is enough. But love is not enough. Not if it costs you your edge. Not if it makes you soft where you should be sharp. Not if it makes you hesitate about where you should be decisive. Machiavelli warned that rulers must be feared if they cannot be loved. And while that advice has been twisted by time, its core remains true: respect is the foundation. And any woman who does not respect your leadership will never protect your legacy. So here's your first law: never choose a woman who resents masculine authority. No matter how beautiful, no matter how sweet, If she challenges your direction without wisdom walk, if she mocks your vision leave, if she calls your standards controlling, show her the door, because a woman who cannot follow cannot build. She can only consume. And once your fire starts to dim, she won't relight it, she'll leave to chase another flame. There's no redemption in staying with someone who despises the thing that makes you a man. And yet that is exactly what most men do. They think love will fix it, that if they're patient enough, tolerant enough, understanding enough, she'll see. But she won't because she doesn't want to see. She wants to feel. And your sacrifice won't feel like love. It'll feel like weakness. And she'll resent you for it. This is the cycle. The man lowers his guard. The woman tests his frame. He bends. She pushes. He compromises. She loses respect. And then when she's drained him dry, she leaves. Not because she's evil, but because nature has no sympathy for the man who betrays his own purpose. Machiavelli would have called it what it is, self-destruction disguised as devotion. You cannot lead a woman you're afraid to lose. And most men are terrified. They orbit her moods, they sacrifice their routines, they abandon their vision, and then they wonder why she no longer looks at them with admiration. Because she doesn't want a servant, she wants a standard. She wants to feel that if she violates your code, there will be consequences, not cruelty, not abuse, but clarity. Women do not test men because they want to destroy them. They test to see if you're real. Suppose you stand for anything beyond her approval, and when you don't, she pulls away, slowly, quietly, until all that's left is a man who gave up everything in the name of connection and a woman who no longer sees anything worth following. A man who bends for comfort will never be followed out of conviction. He will be tolerated, used, maybe even loved in fleeting moments, but never truly respected. And respect is the foundation of loyalty. Not words, not gifts, not chemistry. Respect. Without it, everything collapses eventually. Slowly then, all at once. That's why Machiavelli didn't waste time talking about love in flowery terms. He dissected it, deconstructed it. He understood it as a tool of power, an emotion that must be measured, not worshipped. And he warned that those who fail to command respect will eventually become slaves to the very forces they thought they could tame. A woman's beauty, her charm, her softness, they're not evil, but they are powerful. And if a man does not have the strength to anchor himself in principle, he will drown in her waves and call it fate. You want to know if she's the right woman? Don't ask how she treats you when she's getting everything she wants. Ask how she responds when you say no or when you draw the line. When your mission requires silence, solitude, or focus, and her emotions want attention instead. Does she support your solitude, or does she sabotage it? Does she help you sharpen your sword, or does she dull your edge with distractions wrapped in affection? You see, any woman can be sweet when she's entertained, when you're buying gifts, when you're calling every night. But what happens when the thrill fades, when the spotlight dims, when life becomes still, and all that remains is routine, patience, and process? That's when her true nature emerges. That's when you'll see whether she can sit in the silence of your grind or if she needs chaos to feel alive. And here's where most men make their most costly mistake. They think they can lead a woman through chaos by sacrificing themselves. That if they just bend a little more, give a little more, she'll finally feel safe enough to calm down. But it doesn't work. Because the more you bend, the less she trusts your spine. And once she doubts your frame, it's only a matter of time before she tests it harder, sharper, more destructively. Not because she hates you, but because she doesn't feel safe with a man who bends. Women don't crave weakness. Even when they say they want soft men, what they really want is safety. And no woman feels safe with a man who apologizes for being a man who compromises on his values in the name of comfort, a man who treats her emotional volatility like gospel and treats his own boundaries like options. That's why your next commandment is this: never choose a woman who disrespects your mission, not your job, not your hobbies, your mission. That thing that gets you up before the world, that thing that keeps you grounded when chaos comes, that thing that builds your name even when no one's watching. If she cannot respect it, she cannot respect you. Because a woman who mocks your purpose will never protect it. She may love your attention, but she will resent your ambition. She will smile in public but pull you off course in private. She'll call you obsessed, unavailable, emotionally distant. But Machiavelli would call you something else. If you listened to her, he'd call you conquered. Because once you start shaping your purpose to fit her comfort, you've already lost it. The edge is gone. The fire becomes smoke. And you start living for her approval instead of your own standard. A woman like that doesn't destroy you overnight. She chips away at your resolve, your drive, your instincts, until one day you look in the mirror and don't recognize the man staring back. She didn't ruin you. You did. By choosing her, by staying, by hoping, by negotiating, by ignoring your intuition just because she smiled when she lied. Machiavelli didn't write for men who hoped. He wrote for men who observed, who tested, who measured loyalty not by emotion but by behavior, over time, in pressure, in silence. Here's what most men don't want to admit. Women show you exactly who they are in the first 30 days, not with their words but in their reactions. Their tone was corrected. Their energy when you're unavailable, their mindset when they're bored, their patterns when no spotlight is on them. You just didn't want to see it. You told yourself she's still healing. You told yourself she had potential. You ignored her past. You made excuses, and now you call it bad luck. But this isn't luck. It's discipline or lack thereof. You see, the woman who betrayed others before you isn't starting over with you. She's refining the process. The woman who thrives on drama doesn't want peace. She wants chaos dressed as passion. And the woman who can't sit still when she's not being validated will eventually find that validation somewhere else, usually behind your back. And society will tell you her past doesn't matter, that if you care, you're insecure. But Machiavelli would laugh at that lie, because he knew something modern men forgot. A person's future is almost always a continuation of their past, unless they've demonstrated the rare ability to destroy old patterns. And most people don't destroy their patterns. They perfect them. You are not her savior. You are not her therapist. You are not her project. You are a man. And your time is your life. Every moment you spend trying to reform a woman who refuses to reform herself is a moment you steal from your legacy. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. That means you don't wait for chaos to confirm your doubts. You act on your instincts now, not after she's drained your savings, not after she's left you broken, not after you've sacrificed years of discipline for a fleeting connection. You act while you still have your edge. Because here's the truth, if she doesn't fear losing you, she will never value you. Not really. She might enjoy you. She might love the way you make her feel. She might even say she needs you. But if she doesn't fear your absence, fear that you could walk away at any moment with full clarity, then she will drift into complacency, or worse, contempt. No woman respects a man who won't walk away. Because if he won't walk, then she owns him. Maybe not visibly, maybe not loudly. But deep down, she knows this man bends for me. And once she senses that your strength can be negotiated, she'll test it again and again until it breaks. And when it breaks, so does the frame of the relationship. And she will not stay to rebuild it. She will leave, but not before hollowing you out from the inside. Respect is not built on desperation. It's built on restraint. It's built on your willingness to stand alone rather than kneel for company. And that's what separates the ruler from the romantic. The ruler sets the frame and he enforces it, even if it costs him comfort, even if it costs him her. Because the cost of keeping the wrong woman is far greater than the pain of walking away. And the men who truly rise in life, the men who build, lead, dominate, they don't rise by accident. They rise because they are ruthless with their standards. Because they understand that no woman, no matter how beautiful, can replace their mission. She can complement it, or she can corrupt it. But she can never become it. And any man who makes a woman his mission has already lost both. Most men today are not ruled by their principles. They're ruled by their feelings, and worse, they're proud of it. They think emotional availability is a strength, that compromise is virtue, that if they just love hard enough, listen long enough, hurt silently enough, she'll stay, she'll grow, she'll choose them. But what they don't realize is that their version of love is just weakness dressed up in soft words. They've been taught that surrender is compassion, that silence is peace, that betrayal of self is devotion. But none of that is true. And Machiavelli would call it what it is, the slow suicide of a man who has forgotten how to lead. Because real love does not cost your spine. Real connection does not require you to shrink. A woman who is truly beneficial to your life does not ask you to mute your masculinity so she can feel more secure in her instability. She does not require you to kneel so that she can feel taller. She meets your edge with fire of her own, not to destroy it, but to forge with it. She respects your silence because she knows what you're building in it. She respects your authority because it is rooted in clarity, not cruelty. But most women today have never met a man who operates from clarity. Only comfort, only performance, only desperation. So when she meets a man who actually stands firm, who holds his frame, who doesn't chase, who doesn't explain, who doesn't apologize for his standards, she tests him. She pushes him. Not because she's trying to break him, but because she's trying to find out if he's real. And if you flinch, she knows. If you fold, she owns you. Not because she wants to, but now she sees your strength as a costume, a display, a marketing tactic to gain her affection, not a code you actually live by. Women test men not because they're cruel, but because they're wired to survive, and they cannot follow a man they do not believe in. Not deep down, not in the quiet moments. So when you bend your standards to keep her, when you betray your mission for the sake of harmony, she doesn't feel grateful. She feels unsafe because she now knows your love is negotiable. And once she knows that everything changes, she'll stay maybe, but she won't submit. She'll give you her body maybe, but never her soul. Because you didn't earn it, you bought it with your self-betrayal. And no woman respects what a man gains by giving up who he is. And here's the part no man wants to admit: she never hid who she was. You just refused to see it. You told yourself she was different. You told yourself her past didn't matter, that it wasn't your place to judge that love means forgiveness, that love means giving her a clean slate. But Machiavelli would remind you people change only when it costs them to stay the same. And if she has not paid the price of her patterns, she is not new. She is just unrevealed. And the moment life tests her, truly tests her, she will not rise into someone better. She will fall back into who she's always been. And when that happens, it will be your fault. Not because she tricked you, but because you ignored the signs. The way she speaks about her exes, the way she handles boredom, the way she reacts to boundaries, the way she speaks to you when she doesn't get her way, the way she disrespects what you value and calls it just a joke. You saw it, but you justified it because she was beautiful, because you were lonely, because you wanted to be the exception. But you're not. No one is. You don't rise above chaos by loving it. You rise above chaos by walking away from it immediately, without second chances, without negotiation. Because your life is not a rehab center, your mission is not a rescue mission, your throne is not a therapist's couch. And yet this is exactly what most men do. They confuse loyalty with martyrdom. They confuse emotional manipulation with romance. They confuse their addiction to dysfunction with chemistry, and then they call themselves victims. But they're not victims. They're architects of their own destruction. And the blueprint was written the moment they decided that feelings matter more than standards. Machiavelli didn't write for men who need therapy. He wrote for men who need strategy. And his strategy was simple: control what enters your kingdom, or it will control you. That includes people. That includes women. That includes emotion disguised as opportunity. Every man who's ever lost everything to the wrong woman had at least one moment where his soul said, this is not it. One moment where he felt the tension, where he saw the red flag, where he felt the unease, but he silenced it. He called it insecurity. He called it fear. He told himself he was being too harsh, too judgmental, too closed off. And so he stayed, and he paid. Your gut is not a flaw. It is a compass, one that most men today have been trained to ignore. Because modern society doesn't want strong men, it wants compliant ones. Men who smile, submit, and sacrifice everything for approval. But Machiavelli would say this: you cannot lead if you cannot listen to your own instincts. Because leadership is not about managing others, it's about mastering yourself. And mastery requires discipline. The discipline to wait, to observe, to choose with intention, not impulse. The discipline to step back not out of fear, but out of strategy. Because any woman can behave when she's being watched. The real question is, who is she when you're not around? That's the test. And if you never test her, you will never know her. You'll only know the version she performs to keep your attention. So here's the next law: never choose a woman who cannot thrive in your absence. If she falls apart the moment you stop chasing her, she was never yours. She was never aligned with your vision. She was feeding off your attention, not contributing to your empire. And when that attention fades, as it inevitably will, so will her loyalty. True loyalty is revealed in silence, in distance, in delay, in the seasons where nothing is exciting, nothing is entertaining, and everything demands patience. And most women today, they don't have that patience. They don't have that inner stillness because they've never been taught to cultivate it. They've only been taught how to get attention. And when attention disappears, so does their sense of self. You do not want a woman who needs you to regulate her emotions. You want a woman who can regulate herself. Because when life gets hard, and it will, she won't lean into your mission. She'll sabotage it, not because she's evil, but because she doesn't know how to be still. And that restlessness will manifest as drama, sabotage, and infidelity, all because you mistook her sweetness for substance. Look deeper, test more, observe longer, because every woman you allow into your life is either a blessing or a warning. And most of the warnings are dressed beautifully. And here's the part that stings the most. Most men already knew she was the wrong woman, not at the end, but at the beginning. Something felt off. Something didn't align. Her words and her energy didn't match. Her behavior didn't reflect her promises. But they stayed anyway. Not because they were hopeful, but because they were addicted. Addicted to the story. Addicted to the comfort. This adds to the idea that maybe, just maybe this time, it would be different. But it never is. Because no woman ruins a man's life. He does that himself by choosing her. And unless he accepts that, unless he stops pointing fingers at her and starts pointing inward, he will repeat the cycle. Again and again. Different face, same destruction. Because the moment you lower your standard, once you make it negotiable, and when a woman senses that your code bends for beauty, for affection, for validation, she stops respecting it. She may not say it. She may still smile. She may still stay. But deep down, the foundation is already cracked. And once that crack forms, it doesn't close. It widens, slowly, quietly, until everything you built with her or for her starts to crumble under your own hesitation. That's why Machiavelli emphasized one core law above all: protect the gates. The city doesn't fall to armies, it falls to what you let in. And modern men, they hand over the keys without even knowing what they're protecting. They confuse openness with intimacy, vulnerability with virtue, and then cry betrayal when the very thing they welcome turns against them. But let me tell you something: most motivational speakers will never say you don't need more signs. You need more self-respect. Because every second you spend justifying her behavior, explaining away your gut feeling, or negotiating the terms of your own dignity is a second stolen from the man you could become. She didn't break you. She exposed the parts of you that were already breakable. That version of you needs to die. The version that chases love instead of building a legacy. The version that folds at the first sign of emotional discomfort. The version that believes peace is found in submission instead of in structure. That version of you is what attracted her in the first place. Not the powerful man you're capable of becoming, but the emotionally reactive, easily manipulated, approval-seeking shadow of a man that she knew she could shape, bend, and eventually discard. And that's why she stayed. Not because she believed in your greatness, but because she could sense your weakness. It made her feel strong until it didn't. Until she got bored. Until she started to resent the very passivity she once praised. And when she finally walks away or cheats or creates chaos so you'll chase her again, it won't be a surprise. It'll be the final proof that you were never leading. You were orbiting. So what's the solution? Machiavelli already gave it to you centuries ago. You do not rise by being lucky with women. You rise by being ruthless with your standards. You guard the gate. You control your access. You make every woman prove her alignment, not with her words, but with time, behavior, and consistency. You test her not to manipulate, but to reveal. Because any woman can play the part when you're present. The question is, who is she when you're not? Disengage and observe. Let her silence speak. Let her boredom tell you the truth. Let her response to your boundaries become your final answer. Because the real her isn't who she is when she's happy. The real her is who she becomes when she doesn't get her way, when life gets inconvenient, when your focus is somewhere else and she's not the center of attention. And most men never test this because they're afraid, afraid of what they might find, afraid of losing her, afraid of being alone. But that fear is exactly what's keeping them trapped in a cycle of chaos disguised as love. They'd rather stay loyal to a fantasy than face the truth of who she is, and more importantly, who they are. But no kingdom is built on fear. It's built on order, on law, on self-mastery. And if you don't govern yourself, you will be governed by her moods, by her approval, by her threats, by her withdrawal. And that, brother, is not love. That is slavery. Your standards are not too much. They are your defense against manipulation, against delusion, against emotional entropy. And Machiavelli warned, never let enemies through the gates. But modern men, they hand over the keys to women they barely know, then collapse in confusion when their peace burns down around them. She didn't betray you. You betrayed yourself by refusing to ask the one question that could have saved you. Does this woman strengthen my discipline or weaken it? Because here's the truth. The wrong woman doesn't have to be allowed to ruin you. She doesn't need to cheat. She doesn't need to scream. All she needs to do is dull your edge. It tempts you to skip the gym, laugh at your purpose, call your structure rigid, and over time you'll stop sharpening your sword. You'll stop chasing greatness. You'll start shrinking just to keep the peace, until one day your throne is empty, your mission is blurry, and she's gone looking for the man you used to be. And it won't be her fault. It'll be yours because you knew. You saw it, and you stayed. So what now? What if you're already in it? What if you've already chosen wrong? Then listen carefully, it's not too late. But it will cost you your comfort, your illusions, your routine, maybe even your money, maybe years you won't get back. But ask yourself this, what's more expensive, leaving now or dying slowly over the next 20 years? Because make no mistake, the wrong woman will drain you. Not always out of malice, sometimes just out of nature. But when your energy is gone, when your clarity is gone, when your drive is gone, she will leave anyway. Because the fire she once fed off of is no longer burning. And she never came for peace. She came for power. And you handed it to her gift wrapped in words like compromise, understanding, partnership. But Machiavelli knew what most modern men have forgotten. A prince who does not command fear will lose everything he tries to protect with love. And before you misunderstand, this is not about abuse. This is not about cruelty. This is about presence, structure, frame. This is about being a man who respects himself so deeply, so absolutely, that any woman who tries to soften his edge is immediately removed, not debated with, not coached, not waited on. Removed. Because if you cannot protect your edge, you cannot protect your kingdom. And without your kingdom, your purpose, your discipline, your mission, you are not a man. You are a placeholder, a puppet, a tool for someone else's story. And that ends now. If you felt something shift inside you during this message, don't ignore it. That's not motivation. That's memory. The memory of who you were before the world softened you, before she broke you, before you lowered your standards and called it maturity, before you surrendered your fire and called it love. You are not here to orbit emotions. You are not here to fix broken people. You are not here to beg for loyalty. You are here to build, to lead, to leave something behind that cannot be erased. And the woman you choose will either multiply that vision or dismantle it brick by brick with a kiss and a smile. So choose wisely, test relentlessly, lead ruthlessly, and never forget, a man who fears losing a woman is already owned by her. But a man who fears losing his mission owns the world.